So now it's my pleasure to introduce to you our featured commencement speaker today, who's become a good friend, and you can read in your program about Scott Goldman, who is from Los Angeles, where he serves as the Vice President of the Grammy Foundation. He also works very closely with Grammy in the schools and MusiCares. Scott is someone who I've come to know, and I deeply appreciate his love of music, his love of musicians, and his deep concern about helping aspiring young musicians to get the skills they need, the combination of artistry, technology, and entrepreneurship to succeed in making a life in music. And we discovered very quickly that our interests are almost identical, because that's exactly what McNally Smith College of Music is trying to do as well. Scott has been able to implement his passion for guiding young students through an exceptional program called Grammy Camp. I think it started about 10 years ago at the University of Southern California, Thornton School of Music, and they have about 100 young high school students, aspiring music professionals, performers, songwriters, recording engineers, business thinkers, young people who want to make a life in music. And they've had this camp running beautifully now for 10 years in LA. 3 years ago, they started a second location in New York. A couple of years ago, a third location in Nashville. And this summer, beginning in just a few weeks in June, we are very proud that we partnered with Scott and the Grammy Foundation and McNally Smith College of Music. We'll be hosting a Grammy camp for the first time. We hope the first of many in St. Paul. So we're in pretty good company. LA, New York, Nashville, and St. Paul. Scott is a professional musician, a fine guitarist, plays primarily resonator guitars and slide guitar. And he's also an incredibly insightful and skilled interviewer, and does a whole series. He's done scores, dozens and dozens, if not hundreds of interviews for the Grammy Museum in LA. He's regularly featured at South by Southwest in Austin, Texas. And through his knowledge that he gains through these interviews with the finest musicians of the last 50 years, he has gained a wealth of knowledge and experience, and we invited Scott to come share that with us today. So please give a warm welcome to Scott Goldman.
Good morning. Good morning. We can do that again. Good morning. Good morning. Thank you, Harry. I just told Harry that might be the best introduction I've ever had. Much appreciated. So to Harry, to Doug, to the faculty and staff, I say thank you for inviting me here today. And it dawns on me that I never attended my own college graduation. I was so intent on getting out and changing the world, I was halfway across the country by the time the graduates were crossing the stage in Saratoga Springs, New York. So thank you for giving me a sense of what graduation is like. And I must admit that when Harry called me and asked me to be the commencement speaker, I said, sure, I'll definitely do that. And the next thought when I hung up the phone was, oh my God, now what? Because, it's not as if I spend my days considering the guidance I might offer to graduates, nor do I spend time in quiet reflection about my particular path and what lessons I may have learned along the way. Really, I'm just a very fortunate guy who found his passion in a not unusual way. Allow me a quick story. From the time I can remember, I've loved two things: music and sports. As a youngster, I played every sport imaginable badly. And along about the time I was 13, I started learning how to play guitar. So here I was playing junior high school football and playing guitar at every opportunity, and as you might imagine, both activities were directed at my ultimate goal of getting girls to speak to me. One day, after a particularly grueling practice, I realized something that likely changed the course of my life. Football hurt. It hurt a lot. I never felt that way practicing the guitar. And then one day I played a song at an after-school get-together with some friends and got a wink from a neighborhood girl. Needless to say, I never went back to football. So yes, I owe my career and the opportunity to speak to you today to a 14-year-old girl in Worcester, Massachusetts. Now fast forward about 40 years, and I'm proud to say that I use music as a tool to raise critical funding for music education through the Grammy Foundation, and to help members of our music community facing some of life's most difficult challenges through the work of MusiCares. I'm 25 years into my career in music, a career that doesn't involve performance, it doesn't involve production, but is as much a part of the music ecosystem as any career you might name. And I'll get to a little bit more about that in a bit. And just as your graduation today presents a unique and, to my mind, enormous opportunity, I took this as my opportunity to see what in my experience and in the experience of those I've encountered over the years might have meaning beyond me. Obviously, and I know all of you here have heard this many times, there's no one roadmap to happiness, success, or fulfillment. But with a little patience, possibilities and opportunities abound. I say patience, possibilities, and opportunity for very specific reasons. To me, these are some of the essential ingredients to a life in what we call the modern music industry. Now, Webster's defines possibility as a chance that something might exist, happen, or be true. Abilities or qualities that could make someone better in the future. Nothing could be more true about the music industry. Every time you pick up your instrument, turn on your computer, or make a phone call, something might happen, and it's likely to be to your benefit. We've all heard the doom and gloomers among us who declare the music industry dead. And yes, no one doubts there are challenges for any creative business today. But I can assure you, there's more music available in more ways for more people than there has ever been in our history. Music drives other creative endeavors: film, television, video games, advertising, philanthropy, just to name a few. The filters have changed. The curators have changed. But the possibilities are there, and they are yours to discover or even create. Music and all that aligns with it has become ever more decentralized, whether it's Adam Young down in Ottumwa, Iowa, who made music in his parents' basement for the love of doing it, to Macklemore and Ryan Lewis, who had far more faith in their own ability to build their career than any record label might offer. Here's another story. Young assistant working in an agency in Los Angeles. She observes what's going on around her and gets a sense that having an opinion about artists and bands is the first step to recommending them for TV, commercial, or films. Her opinions and acumen are good enough that higher-ups in her company start listening. She becomes confident enough to go out on her own and starts her own company. Today, she owns and operates one of the most successful music supervision companies in Los Angeles called Chop Shop Music. These folks have shown whether you're an aspiring musician, someone interested in management, or someone with a strong opinion, today you have the tools and the possibilities exist to be the master of your own fate. So let's talk about opportunity. Here's what Mr. Webster says. A favorable juncture of circumstances. A good chance for advancement or progress. Your entire experience at McNally Smith strikes me as a favorable juncture of circumstances. When I was young, and I tried hard not to use that phrase in these remarks, I had absolutely no line of sight to where I wanted to go professionally. For me, working in music seemed about as likely as playing in the NFL, and we know how that turned out. Trial, error, boneheadedness, hard work, and an internal commitment to finding my way had to substitute for a roadmap. I think you had advantages. First and foremost, there are the education and skills that you've acquired here at McNally Smith. From what I've seen, you have a line of sight. I'd be willing to bet you even have a clear picture of where you want to go. Keep that, but be open and alert. You don't want to narrowcast yourself in such a way that you miss something cool because it isn't exactly what you envisioned. My first job in development was putting together a 10K run for United Cerebral Palsy. No connection whatsoever to music. However, I ultimately met the guy who 2 years later offered me the job that led me precisely to what I'm doing today. Remember, opportunity presents a good chance of progress toward your goal, not necessarily the specific goal itself. Here's another advantage. The world today. And I'm sure now you're thinking, oh, this is where he goes on about the connected world, technology, blah, 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 blah. Not exactly. There's a level of sophistication and understanding about music and work and society that's come about largely because of technology. However, the opportunity to progress comes when you take that advantage, put down your phone, step away from the laptop, and just listen. Listening. You musicians know it's the key to making great music. I would argue it's the hardest, most important thing to do, not only in your career, but in your life. As I began my journey, I thought I had to have all the answers. I might have been the youngest guy in the room, but I wanted to show my passion, be proactive, participate. It took me a few years to understand that my education was happening all around me. Whether it was listening to a great guitar player or a venerated senior executive talking about a development plan, I just needed to be present and listen. Because my chance for advancement was happening right before my eyes. I was learning where I fit in the bigger picture. And once you have a fix on where you fit in, then you can begin adding value to the conversation and to your colleagues' conversation and to the work around you. Today, there's so much noise that comes at us from every conceivable direction that those who step back and listen, so they might focus on what really matters, are more likely to see a true opportunity when it arises. Steve Jobs once advised graduates, don't let the noise of others' opinions drown out your inner voice. Have the courage to follow your heart and intuition. Well, if the challenge is following your heart and making your own roadmap to success, then listening is your GPS. In my work, I'm fortunate to have the chance to talk to music artists and business leaders about their careers. Oftentimes, this is part of the Grammy Foundation's Grammy in the Schools programming, where we're speaking to groups of high school students about the variety of careers in music. In these discussions, we spend a lot of time talking about the variety of career options beyond straight performance. This could be everything from those that provide services to musicians in the music community, attorneys, management, business managers, publishing, to teaching at all grade and proficiency levels. I know people in every one of these disciplines who are as passionate about music today as they've ever been at any point in their lives. To a person, they share a commitment to being around music and those making it. They value working in a collaborative and creative community. Commitment, collaboration, creativity, hallmarks of our music community. At the risk of sounding like Mr. Rogers, let me add one more. Kindness. Perhaps more than ever, being a good collaborator, and I mean that in spirit more than technical skill, will lead to opportunities down the road. No one, on stage, in business, or on the bus, wants to spend time with Ms. or Mr. Cranky Pants. Springsteen once said, there's a reason why they call it playing music. It's fun. And I would suggest it goes well beyond performance. It seems that the most successful folks that I run into, whether they're performers or people in the business of music, are those that take their work seriously, but don't take themselves seriously. If I could turn the page, I would continue. I relish the fact that in music you can be yourself. I often find myself in meetings with donors and corporate supporters, bankers, executives at Fortune 500 companies, brand marketing experts, very successful people, accomplished, buttoned up. And given the nature of some of these companies, well, conservative. I'm a music guy. When I walk into these meetings, I have a license to be somewhat different. Now, that doesn't mean sloppy. It doesn't mean unprepared, and it certainly doesn't mean a game of beer pong is going on the expense account. It does mean the possibilities and opportunities are wider and potentially deeper. Which brings me around to what I do. Let me talk for just a minute about music and philanthropy. It doesn't matter where you may find yourself today or 20 years from now, participating in broader community efforts to affect change, respond to a crisis, or just bring what you do to others is something our industry, be it the creative types or those in business, has always done. Think about it. Wherever and whenever there's a disaster or a human crisis, who responds first? Musicians. From Woody Guthrie to Pete Seeger, George Harrison to Bob Geldof, Dave Matthews to Katy Perry. Music and musicians give. And it's not just musicians putting on big concerts. Those who use music as content for business purposes see the value of philanthropy. Raising money for worthy causes is good business for corporate America. This has been borne out by study after study. There are two identical products on the store shelf, and one has a charitable tie-in. Consumers will always choose the product that is doing good. Music plays a huge role in content-delivered philanthropy. The business of identifying the music and artists interested and willing to support charitable efforts is ripe with opportunity. It can come directly from charities. It can come from enlightened artist managers who are looking for unique opportunities to separate their client from the crowd. It can, and often does, come from brands and companies. Someone needs to be the filter, the idea generator, the deal maker. You have a head start in understanding the critical elements of music-based cause marketing: curation, creation, activation. My role at the Grammy Foundation and MusiCares includes identifying, cultivating, and securing corporate support for our education programs and human service activities. I can assure you, we're not your father's nonprofit organization. We find a way to take the excitement of music, marry it to the passion we have for what we do, and bring other like-minded and hopefully deep-pocketed people to the table to join us. It isn't simple or easy, but for me, it provides a daily double of emotional and material benefit. I'm doing something great for a cause I believe in, and I'm always around or talking about music. I'm not suggesting that there is any one path. I am suggesting there are many ways to serve your passion for music and do great things for your community and the world. Nonprofit organizations need your enthusiasm, your smarts, your ideas. It's exactly the hallmarks I spoke of earlier: commitment, collaboration, creativity, all in service of making a living and making a difference. There's one more word I mentioned earlier: patience. My handy dictionary defines the act of being patient as something done in a careful way over a long time period without hurrying. No trajectory is straight, and I would suggest you have time, the parents might not want to hear this, to figure out what you want to do. Leonard Cohen didn't release his first album until he was 33. Raymond Chandler didn't write a single word of consequence until his 40s. Julia Child didn't learn to cook until she was 40. And Clint Eastwood directed his first film at 41. I'd also suggest that you have time to fail. In my work, 9 out of every 10 calls I make results in a no. However, if I really listened to what the person was saying, I learned no is oftentimes the first step to getting a yes. If you're careful, committed, patient, and willing to work hard, failure will actually serve you well. My ideas about possibility, opportunity, patience, commitment, and collaboration informed and changed over time. I never imagined I would have this job and the many opportunities presented to me in my career. Think back to high school and what you thought college would be like and what you expected yourself to be like. Now look at yourself. I'll hazard a guess and say that things didn't exactly turn out as you expected. This process will repeat itself over and over throughout your life. Everything you think now will likely be different in 5 years. We are never finished products. We are all works in progress. I had the opportunity to moderate a discussion with the 20-time Grammy winner Vince Gill and some students at our Grammy Camp program last summer. Speaking about being a musician and his career, Vince said, "I am so lucky I chose music. You know, if you're an athlete, at some point your knees go, your back goes, your shoulder gives out. As a musician, I can still get better. In fact, I'm a better songwriter, a better singer, and a better guitarist than I was 20 years ago. I can do this for the rest of my life." I'm sure each of you here today can relate to what Vince said. I still play guitar every day before I go to work. I write guitar pieces and work out weird bottleneck arrangements of classic songs. Generally, I do it just for me. But you know, I think I'm getting better. It's not what earns me a living, but I'll tell you it's the most important thing I do every day. It also directly connects me in a very visceral way to what does earn me a living. You have that gift, and you can give it to yourself or anyone you like for the rest of your life. So let me close by saying my wish for you is that you carefully and thoughtfully find that favorable juncture of circumstances where you make things happen. I'm convinced we will all be better for your discovery. Finally, I want to thank that 14-year-old girl in Worcester, Massachusetts. She has no idea what she started. Thank you.